So, Bernie, all right, this is part two of an epic conversation. The first part of the conversation, we were discussing these megaliths that seem to have a alignment around the world, and that's fascinating because most of them that you were showing me with that website. Now, what's the website again? So we can just do a quick shout out for that.
FairhamFoundation.com. Fairham.
Okay, and then just great info, like the GPS coordinates and all that, and the research and these. So look like some of those areas that you had showed of megalithic civilization were underwater also, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, like the Yanaguni pyramids off Japan and stuff. It's so fascinating, and I'll send you the link that you can then put in the video for later for people to check out, because it's just next level and nobody knows about it, and it changes your whole perception on our world history and who we are when you find out about it.
Absolutely, and we're going to be talking about the Tartarian Empire as well. You've got Autodidactic.
That is correct. My Australian partner in crime researching Antiquitech, ancient civilizations, and Tartaria. And Tartaria is very fascinating because it's come out of, I first heard about it about 6 years ago, coming out of information from Russia first, but the more you look into it, it's was wiped out right around before World War One, but it's on every single ancient map that's 100 years old or older. And the further back in time you go, the more land it takes up. And we were taught that there was nothing in Siberia or any of those areas. And yet on the maps, it's called Tartaria. It's got its own empire flag. And there's crazy amounts of cities that are on all of these maps. And you look at it today with GPS and it looks like bomb blasts. It looks like the exact same test zones of nuclear weapons and stuff like that, that it's like, what actually happened? And there's some sort of massive cover up. And even there's a released CIA document that right from after World War II, right when the CIA was formed, talking about how the Soviet Union was covering up Tartaria and how it was hiding it from its own civilization. But then it's like, okay, well then how come we weren't taught about it either? And how come you guys also covered it up? So and another thing is it's a lot of the flat earth community are those who have been looking into Tartaria, and thus you hit a wall when I don't necessarily subscribe to that belief. Like, I've been skydiving, I've seen curvature, so I don't know, but at the same time, this whole community is who's done the work on the mud flood, on the star forts, and on Tartaria and digging it up. And star forts are another major thing that is not explained at all, and they're called bastion forts by Western academia and stuff, but they're a type of architecture that's literally in every corner of the world, on every continent except Antarctica. There might be some on Antarctica, I don't know, but it's like in Dubai or United Arab Emirates, I believe, either there or Bahrain, somewhere around there, they've got one star fort that they've accurately dated that's 4,000 years old, and it's identical to some that they claim we made only a couple hundred years ago, and they're everywhere. And it's a common architecture that is not properly explained in our modern understanding and in our history. And there's also actually a Great Wall of star forts that spans through all of Ukraine and then through Siberia, that's bigger than the Great Wall of China. And it's like there's one of these forts every 2 kilometers along this several thousand-kilometer wall that you can now see through Google Maps and stuff. And there's just no documentation of when that was built, where it came from. And it kind of makes it a little hard to believe that there's something that's clearly thousands of years old, yet they claim that it was a new structure that was made by English and the French and the Dutch only a couple hundred years ago.
I was going to say something because we were looking at that information on the previous podcast we did. And if you want to pull up that website again, just for reference, that'd be great. I'd like to show a couple of those, what looks like cities underneath the water, because he's connecting it with Google Maps, right? So he's connecting point A to point B with Google Maps, correct?
Yes.
Well, that's not flat.
Exactly. That's one of the biggest parts, is that it completely disproves that, and it only works on a globe model.
I love your hat, by the way.
Thank you.
I just noticed that, dude. That is a sweet hat, man.
This is also from Grassroots, California, started and owned in Colorado, and they've got a what do you call it? They're not outlet, but like their main headquarters store in Denver, actually. So if you are ever around there, I'm not sure where you are in Colorado or how close you are to that, but
like 5 hours
definitely
away.
check them out. Okay, yeah. So no time soon. Gotcha.
I'm just excited to see these photos that he's going to share with us also.
Oh, Campbell is amazing. Like, I've done about 20 streams with him now, and just every time it blows my mind. And he digs up a lot of like ancient books and stuff like that. And it's another discovery is that there's these French and German science books from the 1600s that talk about atmospheric electricity, and they give you what hertz frequency of electricity range you're going to get from a radio tower, depending how high up you are. And they have it completely mapped out. And these are the 1600s. Yet we're told Benjamin Franklin discovered electricity in the 1700s. So right there shows again one massive lie. Like, it's just lie after lie that we have being uncovered these days.
Hello. Ladies and gentlemen, don't get hypnotized by Bernie's hat. What we were talking about before, folks, is a very strong possibility that our ancestors, the cavemen, you know how you hear the saying, so easy a caveman could do it. Well, cavemen were supposedly they could just barely start a fire, right? Yet there's these megaliths that are, 1,000-ton blocks that have such precision you can't even put a piece of paper between that block and the next. So I would say the perspective we have on cavemen is way off. They seem to be much more intelligent than most people walking around today. And that's just my opinion. So
exactly.
What are you doing, Bernie?
I could not agree. Trying to find the site. He's got so Autodidactic and then Autodidactic 2 channel, as well as Spiral Up. Spiral Up's like a newer one where it's more on like the happy energy, like consciousness, spirituality side of things. And then his Autodidactic channels are on Star Forts, Mud Flood, and Tartaria.
These star forts are quite fascinating. There's some in Tennessee also that I got invited to go check out. Most of it's been taken down now, but I'd like to go see what's left.
And another intricate part of it is that any city, like any world city, whether it's like Beijing, Shanghai, or London, or France, or even New York, every city from the 1700s backwards, any of the maps, they're built out as star forts. It's a star, they're star cities. So it's like it was a global civilization, and thus the Tartarian community suspects a Tartarian civilization only a couple hundred years ago. And where did it go, and why are we not taught about it? And it has to do with that it was a water powered energy as well. Like every city had like these channels and canals everywhere. And that there's another good researcher in Buffalo, New York, that looks into it, Dustin. He used to be called Bushwhacking to Tartaria, but has since changed his name a little bit. But I forget what he's called now, but he does a really good job of exploring that area and showing that most likely there were these cities and this society, culture, civilization that was not just like North America was fully civilized or developed before Columbus. It's that the whole world was, and it was a global civilization that for whatever reason, has been wiped out and erased and lied about.
So much has been changed. It would be fascinating if we could find a hard drive from the ancients, right? That had all of their history, true history embedded in there. I was told there was something like that under the Bosnian pyramid, but
okay, so I think the golden tablets might actually have that information into them, and definitely the crystal skulls. Like, people talk about their experience with the crystal skulls, how it's telekinetic. I believe that's because they've stored light. Like, we now can store information. Light freezes in crystals. We have that technology now. I believe that those crystal skulls are essentially these hard drives of the ancients that have the knowledge within them. And I would like to look further into that, as well as all of the golden tablets. So under the Bosnian pyramids, there were some, Romania, there were some, and then Chaos Cave, Father Crespi collection in Ecuador. Those ones are well documented. And although they're in all these pre-Greek, Sumerian, pre-Babylonian languages, pre-Sanskrit languages, but you can see that they're similar. I believe that there's also could be that hard storage, like our hard drives today, they're made out of the solid state ones are made out of gold. And it's like, what's to say that these old golden tablets don't also have that same information? And that would explain why they were so obsessed with melting the gold down before shipping it when they raided these civilizations a few hundred years ago.
Yeah. You ever wonder if they used it for radiation protection or some type of mental telepathy?
Oh, 100%. The fact that the gold, you have a gold solenoid over as a crown, the shape of that's like a energy generator on the top of your crown chakra. I fully believe that some of with the emeralds, the gems in that gold and how they're intricately made, that's got to be like an aura consciousness expander and reader. Like, it doesn't make sense any other way.
I wonder if those crystal caves in Mexico were some type of. No, I don't think.
That's Gaia. That's got to be Gaia. That's Mother Earth's spiritual hard drive right there.
That's what I was just going to say. I think it's natural. Absolutely. Well put, man. It's interesting how they closed it off down there. They said it was because it was too hot, but what is it? Hopefully they were smart enough to realize that they just shouldn't mess with it.
Exactly.
This is the website here. And geez, all these discoveries, the Nazca Star, the Karnak Stones, the Newport Tower, the Kensington Runestone. I need to bookmark this for sure. This could be a multitude of podcasts. But here's some more geoglyphs and geolithology.
No wonder he didn't join, stupid Gmail. Put it in drafts and didn't send. Sorry. Sorry, Campbell. He will now be joining any moment, I'm guessing.
He's like, hurry up, you dipshits. I've been waiting here for 20 minutes. All righty here.
My bad.
Oops. This is kind of cool.
Yeah, so it's that he's been able to take those sort of lines and figure them out at every other site pretty much in the world. And yeah, I'll let you show some here and talk for a sec while I pick up the phone of my lovely girlfriend. Amber says hi.
Okay. Hi, Amber. All right, we'll go to the Bosnian pyramid geoglyphs. Your boyfriend got mad at me earlier. Hey, there's Campbell. The man, the myth, the legend, Campbell.
Hello.
Hey, man. Apologies for not letting you talk much in the last podcast.
Oh, no worries. No, that was cool.
I was a little heated. So, I've got the mute button next to me. Yeah, I've got the mute button next to me. So if I talk too much, I'm going to hit mute on myself.
No worries. All right, is BurnEye there?
He is. He's got a phone call from his girlfriend. So we were just talking about the Far M Foundation, and we were looking at some of the megaliths and such. But I'm super excited with what you're about to share with us. You're one of the leading researchers in the Tartarian Empire. And
thank you.
yeah. So let me give you permission to share a screen here. So if you want to share something, you can do so. And looking forward to hear what you have to say.
Cool. All right, let's jump into it. So there's my pick there. So can you see that? Starfort?
Yes, sir.
So yeah, we'll start with Starfort. So I don't know how familiar you are with these wrecks, but these are everywhere. They're all over the earth. And the story is that they were built by the Italians and French between, I think, about 1550 and 1700. But they're everywhere.
Zach,
They're even in
I'll
Australia, which
add
wasn't,
you here
you know,
in a
found
few
until
minutes when
1788, or so they
the
say.
video is
So
done.
these are basically, when you look at the shape of them, they're cymatic geometric
as soon as
shapes.
the,
They're always these have this geometry to them, and they always have water
I'm just
around them as
setting
well.
up the
In
other
these canals, and
studio
of course,
for the
water
moment.
carries current.
Where's
So there's
this one?
another one. Where?
Yeah.
This one, I'm actually not sure.
The ones
think
that are
this is-
remaining cities are usually in Germany or Denmark, Holland.
Yeah,
that
sort of
those
Northern
areas.
Europe sort of area is where the best ones are. There's a few good ones in the USA. I think Fort McHenry and a few like that. But they're all the same, and they've always got, this one's been sort of built over in the middle, because it's always geometry in the middle as well, and they've normally got a citadel, which is either a square, a pentagram, a hexagon, or an octagon. But they're just all the same kind of thing. But you can see this one is what's that? Octagon. So that, you know, this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sided. Yep, eight pointed. And you can see this one's even got another 8 pointed star underneath it that's been turned half a turn. Can you see that?
Yeah.
And there we have in the middle the square citadel. This one's actually, I think it's been turned into housing. But I'll so this is just a map to show these have been around for forever, basically, and they're all, this is how they're designed, just all on geometry.
And I have to point out that the amount of terraforming to make these is absolutely insane, and especially for the time frame that they claim that they were made. Like, how in like God's earth would you move all of that with a couple people and horses? Like, it's impossible, because it's like you're literally moving mountains, like literally moving mountains when making these.
It is, and you can see, you know, just the height here, how built up they are. And now when we see them, they're all on mounds, so we know there's a lot more under the ground, and they're full of old, you know, cathedrals. Here's a cathedral with the cross, and red brick buildings, which we see everywhere. Here's another one, 5-pointer. As you can see, it's 5-point inside. So that they're all based on, you know, if it's a 5-pointer, then it'll be like everything will be sort of 5-pointed and pentagons and things like that. Or if it's 8-sided, it'll be octagons. And they're not all, they have satellites. This is what we call like a satellite star. You can see this is even half a circle. So I'm not sure if that's got to do with magnetics, but they're all basically there's just geometry. This is a citadel. So this is the inside of one of the star forts. And it looks, there's another one. This one that someone's just built their house inside it. So must be pretty good, you know, energy in there for the crops and the animals. There's another one. And I've got, so you can see they're just all.
Right, and like that's insane amount of terraforming between the moats, the amount of land, the leveling that you have to do to be able to have those moats working. Like, it's not, there's no explanation or like validity in the story that we are told on the creation of these.
Exactly, yeah. This is all man-made, canals and things. And you can see this is, 4-pointer, and then they've gone to the 4 with the circles. And we often see these. these sort of arrows that are pointing in a certain direction, and you can see it's got one up there, another one there, and then a bigger one there, and you can see it's sort of bursting out this way. You know, like the energy, it sort of looks like it's bursting that way.
And you made a great point at the beginning that it's cymatic frequencies. Like there's literal cymatic frequencies that match the exact patterns to the majority of these bigger ones. So
Yeah.
it is energy. They're built in a higher dimensional energy pattern.
Definitely. So, and this one you might recognize.
Pentagon.
Yeah, exactly right.
20th anniversary.
That's the that's the stuff what
Can you
Citadel.
zoom in on that?
So them claiming that they built that, it's like chances are it actually existed to some degree, like at least the terraforming around it before they got
or the center.
Yeah, I was looking at that too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's interesting. So now here's another very, I get mixed emotions about this. I'm just going to say it real quick. Like America, I think if America falls as far as the Constitution and what they uphold, it's going to be really scary for the world. Yet at the same time, I look at some of the wars that America's already been through, and most of them we hadn't, in my opinion, we shouldn't have been there anyway, right? So did they take this area of what was a sacred site of a star fort and build over it with this Pentagon? And is it housing a entity?
Yeah,
exactly.
And an energy node too, right? Like it's in those ancient ley line alignments that it's one of those spots.
Yeah, and even if you look at this, when you look at the aerial view of Washington, that's what it looks like. It's got a massive pyramid in there that goes out, and you've got the White House and the monument and things. So yeah, they basically take over these old sacred sites because they're built on energy points, and they, as we know, they invert everything, they change it around to try and change the energy, which is really changing the way that we perceive it. And so that changes the energy that we give to it, and that changes the energy, right? You know, because we're the creators, of course.
Right. So one thing I have to point out with that's so crucial that like has always baffled my mind, for instance, is Isis. Isis was the most sacred name, like this worshipped holy goddess for tens of thousands of years. And then just like that, the flick of a second, all of humanity now turned that into fear and terrorism, the exact opposite energy and focus point sort of thing, right? So that ties exactly into what you're saying, Campbell.
Exactly. It's the whole thing. You know, cathedrals used to be for healing from within, and now it's all about, you know, outside worshiping, you know, false statues and all this kind of thing. Their education, they take over all, you know, all the schools and universities. They're all old world buildings, and so they change that into indoctrination instead of, you know, education, you know, what to think instead of how to think. So it's the same story everywhere. It's all inversion. Now I'll just get onto the next file. One tick, I'll stop sharing that screen.
Your dream vacation plans probably don't include hepatitis A or B.
One minute. I've got some more pics here. So yeah, this one. So we'll go into frequencies.
Yeah, I love Isis, Queen of Heaven.
Yeah.
You ever wonder if
heaven, Queen of Heaven, to terrorists.
They deal with everything.
You know, you were talking about the Freemasons, and at the higher levels, there's a worship of Lucifer, which is Venus, which is connected to Inanna or Ishtar, Eastern Star. So then you have to ask yourselves, the Vatican had a huge influence in the Bible as we know it, as most people know it. And a lot of the terminology that was written in there, like what do they have that they flipped around? right? Was it
Spell casting,
Yep.
spelling,
Spellcasting.
right?
Yeah, spelling. Back in the 1300s, there was a thing called the Great Vowel Shift, where they literally took vowels out of out of our alphabet. And alphabet, of course, just means A, B, right? Alpha and beta. So they've literally changed the sounds that we make, which is frequency, right? Which is exactly what we're talking about. This is just a random pick of domes, because domes and ether energy.
And it's an example of Antiquitech. And
Antiquitech, yeah.
Looks
So you
like
can see
a
there's
barn
dome
above
with domes inside. This is like a bell-free, they call them now. And our theory is because they used to have bells, now they don't. And of course, bells give frequency, and then they go down, and we have all these. Let me get to the next one. So this is an oscillator, I believe they're called, and this is someone who plays music. He makes different dance music and stuff, and plays it through this machine. And so this is literally looking at a frequency. Like this is an expression of a certain frequency, and of course that's exactly what we see in stars. And even to the point, I mean, it's a moving image, but you can see even to the point that it's like the fractal stacking, where they have the same shape stacked on top of itself. And there's another one. And so this is why we're linking star forts with frequency. And we see this a lot, this kind of rounded shape. And so literally what star forts, this looks like the citadels, the octagon or whatever. What they look like is they're built on certain, energy nodal points, shall we say, which give out a natural frequency. And they're just matching the frequency. They're just making the frequency in the 3D physical world, and which I guess magnifies the frequency up.
Yeah,
And
it's energy harvesting, right? And that in the center of each one is, like, for the ones that are remaining, haven't been torn down, are these grand cathedrals.
Yep.
And it's a cathode and anode. There's a dipole on the, and I don't know if you have the pictures to show in, we'll go into it, on the atmospheric electricity that in these ancient French and German science books, showing the actual, that they were aware of, and they were harvesting these energy potential differences in the top of the tower to the bottom. And that those domes, they're actual resonator domes, they're actual capacitors. Like, this is physics, this is higher dimensional engineering I'm speaking in terms of. That it's made of silver, it's made of copper, it's made of these magnetic electrical materials, and layered in actual ways that is a design of an actual functioning energy capacitor, and that they're placed and built, the buildings made out of like silica and other energy resonating materials. And that they've now discovered that bricks can be turned into batteries, so that these ancient architectures are actually higher dimensional technology, energy harvesting buildings. Like, it's actually mind-blowing when you get the real science and understanding of what you're looking at.
And you can just see in this one all the different, they're not just domes, they've got all these different workings inside them. And even something that's called a drum,
Yeah, and it's those are radio guides and waveguide generators and stuff. The actual patterns that they are, you can take and map it, and with an identical, like, computer processor, as well as like these chips and these different capacitors, and it's the exact same material, the exact same designs. And that it's from what you're using in your computer, the microchip. It's just the identical thing built on a macro scale.
Exactly, yeah. And this, of course, is inside a cathedral. And you can see just these shapes, right? These are the shapes that we see. We just saw literally in those, in these types of things, with the rounded edges and that. And so these are all also, I mean, these are newer ones. They're not the old traditional ones. Oh, there you go. And this is also linked to crop circles. And Bernard mentioned before, and there's also video of these white orbs that spin around in fields and then disappear, and they leave behind these crop circles. So is this literally, you know, are those orbs just energy that we're seeing? And this is literally the expression of energy coming up through the earth, and that's what it creates.
Right? There's just so many fascinating possibilities. It truly is mind-boggling.
There's just so many connections, as you know, as far as shapes and fractals. I mean, look at these shapes here, right? You see these all over cathedrals.
Exactly.
Right.
I'm pulling up right now, and I invited Michelle Gibson. She was busy, so we'll do another one with Campbell, myself, and Michelle Rex in the future, where we've been doing a joint project, and I pull out the hydrogen wave function actual from the Sapphire project, like real high level cutting edge science, and you're matching identical patterns that are real frequencies that are full cymatic frequencies of the solfeggios and stuff like that, that are then identical to the base formation of hydrogen, the atom that is the structure of everything, and that it's then the exact same thing that is in the windows of these cathedrals that are it's a the waveguide replicator or magnifier, and that the key, the frequency, the cymatic frequency is the exact same as one of the tones on the organ. So it's that the organ music is the exact same frequency and shape as the hydrogen creation, and that it all ties into one giant, massive replicating technology structure that is way more advanced than we give it credit or even try to understand.
Exactly. So these are musical notes expressed. I believe this is through water, and they've photographed it. But this is literally looking at the musical notes, and of course, you know, same design, same geometry, but these literally look like the windows, right? The stained glass windows we see.
Yeah, and see, that's C2, D2. So those are notes, actual notes that are keys on the organs within those cathedrals that are then the exact same 2D frequency that are the windows. Like, it's the complexity and what that actually means it's mind-bending.
Exactly. And there's even a lady who goes out and she records the silence in cathedrals. And she sits there, she records the silence, and then she does it again, but she plays back her recording of the silence while she's recording the second one. And she does that 7 times, and she ends up with a frequency.
Wow.
She ends up, recording a frequency, and it's the frequency of the cathedral.
That's cool.
Here's a few more. So this is literally frequency, sound, you know, the expression of sound. And also, if you've looked into Dr. Emoto's work, where he freezes ice crystals, very, very similar, but he's putting in thought energy. He's putting in intention rather than sound. But it's all a frequency. It's just a different expression, right? One's sound, one's, you know, electric energy, whatever you want to call it, one's vibration. Of course, we see, you know, these, you know, massive machines. And of course, you know, those who want to rule us, they go to these buildings first, right, and take them over, because they're like their Freemasonry.
Leo Vegas invites you to the live game show Adventures Beyond Wonderland. Play at Leo Vegas, King of Casino.
Now, this is Fort Jefferson. This is in the Florida Keys, 200 miles off the coast, and it's the largest red brick building in the United States of America. And as you can see, this is one of those frequencies.
And it's like, how like their story of, we built this 200 years ago when there was no infrastructure. It's literally 200 miles off the coast, and the largest, like, how did you get the bricks there? How did you build out an island? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, some of the stories, they say it was the boats dumping their, what do they call it, where they carry bricks as weight? I've forgotten now, but I mean, come on. But also, this has got it's in the ocean, and it's got like a a moat built around it. And the other thing, and because there's lots of these are like this, just like islands or in the water, in the ocean. Now, they tell us it's a fort. Now, if you're trying to attack the United States in boats and you're coming up and you see a fort, what do you think you'd do? I mean, I know what I'd do. I'd just sail around it.
Right? Just not come within firing range?
Exactly. Just far enough so they can't actually hit you. So it doesn't make any sense at all. And this is, this is obviously Indian.
They're the music notes of the earth.
Exactly. Resonant frequencies.
And everything's expressed. This is the same kind of geometry, coming from the Vedic cultures and Indian kind of stuff. Here we go. So these are some of the cathedral windows, the original ones, before now a lot of them are replaced, and they show the little pictures and stuff, but this is what they were. And this is literally an expression of a frequency. So the organ in this cathedral would be tuned to these frequencies. And it would also be tied into the bells, because of course they all used to have bells. They got taken out in the Second World War pretty much. And it's not the best picture, but you can see up here, all this stuff, which is what we call Antiquitech, all these little bits coming off it. They're all antennas and things and ways to draw ethereal energy, free energy.
Yeah, atmospheric energy out of the... And it's that real science, you can actually produce free electricity. And this is part of what Tesla was doing, is the differential between the top of the spire to the ground actually creates an electrical differential that you then connect to another wire that goes into the ground, your grounding, and that this is your 3-phase electricity. You put that into as the third phase in your circuit, and then you have a bell ringing circuit with the vacuum tubes, the glass tubes, like your fluorescent lighting and stuff, and that actually produces plasma electricity out of the air. It's real technology. These things actually function producing electricity. It's crazy.
And this window here, this is, what's this, Bernie?
A sound wave guide, and they built these in computer chips, like literally silicon
as well. This bit, isn't that?
Yeah, that's an actual radio guide, antenna, sound wave antenna. That's what it is.
And of course, we've got all the geometry here again. And of course, now we see all this stuff, but this is, this is added. All these statues are added afterwards, as far as we can tell. That that's the facading, but all of this geometry that's behind it and actually built into the building is part of the structure. And you can, look at the work that's gone into that. And they tell us it's all just for the, the worship and the glory of God. Well, what's the glory of God, right? What were they worshipping? What, we know, right? Electricity, maybe. So let me just, I'll just stop sharing for a tick and bring up one more file. Okay, so these are called Monstrances. Okay, and these we're told they're religious, artifacts or whatever, but this is just to start with. Look how similar that is to the top of a cathedral, literally with the geometry and everything built in.
And the zodiacal clock, the constellations.
Down here.
Star of David. Wow.
Star of David. Yep, everything.
Which the Star of David represents so many more things than what, it could be infinite possibilities, but the as above, so below, the feminine, the masculine, there's many levels to that.
The Merkaba.
It's also the shape of the structure of the universe. It's the shape of the hydrogen atom and the functionality of the structure of physical matter.
Ooh. Now that's deep. His name's Bernie, the science guy.
You'll see everywhere is these balls.
Filled with
and
mercury.
filled with mercury. We've actually got some photos and where someone's cracked them and there was mercury in there. Now with these monstrances, they all have this glass container. It's like, it's just like two bits of glass with a void in, and that's normally where they put, the sacrament, which is, the body of Christ and all this kind of stuff. But if we've got pictures of older ones, here's the middle. I mean, look how intricate that thing is. But the older ones, we've got pictures of them and they've got red stuff in here. Okay.
Can you go back to that one before, please? Before that, the one right before that.
Oh, before?
Yeah, one more.
That one.
Yes, let's look at this for a minute. Like, wow, that to me reminds me of a cell tower. It reminds me of a communications tower. And I mean, it looks like it has coils. Those look like coils.
They are. Like, that's why it's called Antiquitech. Like, this is like that is like a well-designed piece of ancient technology that we have just been lied to about its purpose, and we're just coming up to the same understanding of science to figure out that there's functionality to all of this.
Now, where is this at? This one?
I'm not sure. Most of them, I mean, these old ones, they're mainly, in like Vatican City and stuff, locked away in museums, but they do use, the replica type ones today. They still make them.
But that's a good
the older
point.
the further you go back, the more intricate and the more like machines they start to look like.
Yeah,
and
it's the World War II, the Nazis, they took a whole bunch of those. So back to our previous conversation there, Rex, where you're talking about the Nazis going for ancient technology. This is one of the things that they actually like went out of their way to get a bunch of, and that have been missing ever since.
They tell us it's all about the spear of destiny and these, things that no one's ever seen or doesn't really know, but they were just cleaning out the old tech. And because I mean, did you know that monstrances existed? I mean, I didn't before I found the topic. So all this stuff that we didn't even know existed is what was stolen. And if you look at this as well, it clearly looks like a cathedral. And this is, like a handheld miniature version. So you can imagine if cathedrals were healing centers where people went to, get their vibration right and to get healed, this could be a mini one. This could be, the origin of priests going out and seeing people and having congregations. People who couldn't get into the cathedral, they just took one of these out and healed them with this. For all we know, right?
Yeah, and all the synchronicities we're having right now. So I was just in the Grand Canyon with my friends Jared Murphy and Shondell, and Jared Murphy is a believer of a high-level civilization, not aliens, tens of thousands of years ago that were super advanced. And we were talking about like the relics that we see today, a lot of these antiques and these religious relics that are sacred, right? And it seems as if the majority of what we're looking at is a replica of something that was an actual technology that was more than a mental worship point. And you can do mind over matter quite a bit. The mind is extremely powerful. It's the most, but my point is, that's a whole other podcast. These technologies were acting at a physical level also. They were physically interacting, and like you're looking at the Jed Tower here and the connections. Wow.
Exactly. It was the tech. And that's why it was replicated, because as it was lost after, catastrophes and that, some people had the knowledge of what they had before, and it was just replicated, this is what it looked like, and they became the symbols. But now we're told it's all, spiritual and for God, right? But it was a lot more practical than we're told.
Or it's aliens.
Or aliens. And just on that point of the monstrances, there's another one. And them having red, I've lost all my pictures now, having red, I have to go back, like red liquid found in some of them, in these centerpieces. Some of these, they actually have like what look like a vacuum tube instead of a round piece. Now, you know, what's the other thing that they do at church, right? They have the body of Christ, but they also have the blood of Christ, right? And we found the mercury in the balls. Now, have you heard of red mercury, Rex?
Yeah.
Yep.
I haven't.
Oh,
So,
no.
sorry, you haven't?
No.
No.
Oh my.
Oh gosh.
Hey man, I'm not a crazy alchemy guy. I'm a
crazy.
crazy conspiracy guy. All right.
Fair enough. So red mercury is essentially plasma mercury, and that's where you get your anti-gravity stuff from. I'll bring up some evidence with that tomorrow night with alien scientists, because he'll be able to lead into that a lot more on the anti-gravity technologies and stuff like that. So we'll cover it then. But it's so basically it's plasma state mercury. So that's when you're going to be getting your effects of some sort of anti-gravity, over unity electricity, possibilities of just higher energy technologies when you're dealing with red mercury.
It's sort of half here and half in another realm, to the point where it's called vampire blood, because it doesn't reflect in a mirror. You can put it in a glass vial, and you hold the vial up to a mirror and the vial looks empty. And it also is repelled. And this is serious. And I'll
actual videos of
the
this.
video. We've got footage. It's repelled by garlic and attracted to gold.
Dude.
Right?
Wow.
Like, it's crazy.
Okay. So just as a side topic, just a theory, if the red stuff in here was, what we're told, and they're calling now the blood of Christ, right? What's the blood of Christ? I mean, blood, right? We have a circulatory system. That's where our blood runs, right? It's a circuit, right? So now we're back to energy and electricity and circuits. So is that just, it's like we said before, they changed the symbols. If they just change, it's the body of Christ, when it was actually technology that was doing something. You put the body of Christ in here and blah,
That's
you get the glory of God. You get the glory of God, which we can see bursting out here.
And that would explain, like, if someone found one that's still from like the previous civilization that still had active plasma mercury in it, it would probably activate that device. And then that explains, it's through God. It's the blood of Christ.
Exactly. Good point. Right? So just random ones that were found that were still activated, someone finds them and it's like, it's a
miracle. We found the blood of Christ. It's activated, like, look at the energy coming out of it. It's Jesus. Hallelujah. Right? Like, that makes perfect sense.
And this is just to show you all the, the Egyptian glyphs and that we see, they're all based on geometry and all based on tech. You know?
It's blueprints. They're blueprints to advanced lost technology. And there's another channel, obviously don't have time to go in it tonight, but that literally deciphers the ancient Egyptian glyphs into the understanding of magnetics and electromagnetics, and that's talking in magnetic field force interactions, and that's what the language actually is speaking.
And even things like this, basically the wings seem to represent electricity, and you can see this is almost like a spark gap, and we've got the two towers, with these on them. So is this just a representation again of some device that was creating energy? We've got the mercury balls here, and everything's just been changed, right? It's just all allegory, right? It's all, and look at this, this is these used to be on the top of all the power poles, right, when we were kids, right?
Exactly. Like,
and all it is they just represent things differently, because they were using a language where you could come from any country, but you could see the symbols. It's like we're getting back to it today, right? It's like if you see a blue square with a white F in it, that means something, right? And it doesn't just mean Facebook. To someone it means Facebook. To someone it means, that's where my group or my page is. To someone it means that's where I share info. To someone it means something else. That's where I play games. So same with these hieroglyphs, right? Depending on how you know to read them, that might mean, place to heal, and to someone else it might be the designs of how to build that, how it actually works.
Exactly. It's totally the instructions. Like that's an instruction manual on how this technology works. Like guaranteed.
He's even having a toast. There's another one. The Ankh, of course, definitely in there. There's another monstrance. I mean, so that's just, you can imagine, you know, red mercury, the body or the blood of Christ, if they want to call it that. And then these are all antennas drawing energy down, you know, into this central part, you know, to activate it, and then the glory of God, you know, who knows, right? And of course they hide all this, you know, they don't want us to know that we used to have free energy and free, you know, frequency healing and all this stuff, because as you know, they like their power, and to them, you know, a good way for power is money. So then they change, you know, these natural healing centers that run off, you know, the ether and natural energy, they change them to Rockefeller medicine, right? And hence, you know, look around today. And then they tell us, oh no, you know, there was never free energy. You've got to pay us for it. You know, so that they go around and they smash it all. They take all the bells out. They steal all the Antiquitech. So we don't know that it even existed. So we can't even, you know, we're not even complaining, give it back, because we don't even know that we lost it. You know, and this is, you know, an old motor. This is just a simple old magnetic motor.
And they're everywhere. And it's like the book burnings were to erase the advanced technology that there was. Like, do you have any of the pictures of those French or German atmospheric electricity diagrams handy, or we'll have to do that on another?
I don't think so.
Yeah, we'll do that on another podcast. But it's like chapters of electricity in Old German and Old French. So clearly that's probably what World War I and World War II were wiping out the leftover advanced civilization of Tartaria and their Antiquitech and all of that before. And then the book burnings and whatnot. No, that wasn't to destroy an idol or a belief. That was to destroy the knowledge of advanced technology. And as well, you have Europe was in the Dark Ages. Yeah, the rest of the world, especially the Muslim world, was in their golden age. They had free energy, free light, like everything. Like they were powered places.
And why is it called the Dark Ages, right? Like they took the free energy away from us. No more light.
How long ago are you saying you believe there was free energy, golden age for the Muslim faith?
Probably about 500 years at least. And it's that chances are the time of like the Greeks and stuff, like 2000 years ago was when it would have been like a global sort of thing. And then something happened. There was some sort of reset. And then there was another reset, like a smaller reset around the 8 or 16 or 17, maybe even 1500s, when the whole Columbus story happened. Sometime around then was the fall of the last one. And
about 1300s,
yeah.
But there's also massive problems with the timeline, so that's a whole nother story. But not as far back as we're talking, not thousands of years. You know, within 1,000 years, and then something natural happened, and then basically while the world was, you know, recovering and all smashed up, you know, the infiltrators came in, and you know, the whisperers, as I like to call them, and they just basically started turning people against each other, you know, destroying all the info or keeping it for themselves. And here we are.
And Rex, I know how you're feeling right now, because I went through that exact same like rejection when this information was first put to me. It's like, what? No, like it's just impossible.
No, time out. No, I'm not thinking that at all. Like this, I've heard so much before. This is really nothing that's like making me go, am I where I think I am? Am I in the Matrix? It's fascinating.
Okay, well, that was my personal experience. The first time I was exposed to it, I was like, this is freaking impossible. Like, but it's like, the more I got into it, the more research every day, it's like, it is so hidden in plain sight. It is ridiculous. And it was not that long ago. Like the robber barons that came over, they were robbing, and they were barons that raped and pillaged and destroyed took over whatever civilization was here not that long ago. And that's why there are these pyramids all throughout North America, these leftover cities and stuff like that. And that it was already there. And there's a lot of evidence too, like the train tracks across North America, but also across Siberia. The oldest pictures, it looks like they're being dug out. They're not that they're being built, but like it looks like they're being dug out.
And you look at the time frames and the technology and how much and how fast they were building all these old buildings, and the story for many of them, massive, like huge buildings. And if you're talking World's Fairs, like things that cover, you know, acres for one building, and they tell us it was built in a year or two, you know, back in the 1800s when there was no tech, no roads, horse and cart. So it's just a big thing.
And they built them for 2 years only to destroy them, right? Like there's so many of these churches,
they knock them over.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the more you look into it, there's some sort of absolute massive cover up that like it's mind blowing.
And just think, you know, we've all seen these old buildings and how superior they are to these, you know, square, you know, bits of crap that they build today. And in every city, they've gone in and they've destroyed these old buildings and replaced them with these crappy square things that you need to heat and cool, and they're not good for you. And, you know, why would they do that? But yeah, holy hand grenade, right? What if this is a mercury ball and this is an antenna? Could be like a Wi-Fi device, right?
Exactly.
But we just told, no, it's not. It's not a Wi-Fi device. It's a what is it? A Mercus Globus? Is that right? Something Globus.
Worshipping false idols. It takes a whole new meaning.
And you can see, like, good time to say that, because you can see this is an old structure, but all these idols have been added. You know, this is all the stamp of whatever you want to call them, right? You know, the Phoenicians, the whatever, you know, whatever name you want to put on them. They put a facade on everything. They come and they find their Freemasonry, right? And they don't, you know, cities aren't founded, they're found. And they just rebrand them.
It's the date of the facade, right? The new numbers. And why is it called a facade that is put on the outside? That is the date they built the facade on all of the big like World's Fair style buildings and whatnot that have that 1800 over here. The word, what does facade mean? It's got two meanings, and it's like that's the date the facade was put on that building, not the date that it was actually built from the ground up.
Exactly. And we've found that you go to any of these buildings, we haven't done all of them, but you know, ones where you find, you know, bits of the facade, you know, knocked off the corner, they're all red brick underneath, all of them. All these buildings, and as Bernie said, they've now come out saying that red bricks you can use as batteries, and specifically red bricks, and it's got to do with the iron content in them. I mean, look at this, right? They tell us that's a pagoda. What do you think that is?
Looks like an electrical capacitor to me.
Or something that was attempting to mimic an electrical capacitor. I can't really see the details.
Could be either. It's not the best contrast, but all these, they're just so covered in all this intricate, you know, facading or artwork. But when you look at it, you know, break them down, they just look like little mini antennas and things like that. Whoops, what was that one? Just all these in.
And they're made of copper on like the domes and the sides of them, and then the actual structures, a lot of these ancient brick buildings, and they claim that found where the steel, the iron going through it, like that's a new thing, that yet the oldest brick buildings going up to the actual domes that are made of metals, you have these iron connectors that it's actual the electrical wiring of these buildings and these technologies. And it's
like the strapping, you can still see it on the outside of some buildings, these sort of metal strap things that go down, you know. But again, you know, just technology. We've just been, and this is why they have the gatekeepers, right? Why they have archaeologists and things, You know, because, you know, we silly humans, we're not allowed to look into the past. You know, we're not allowed to go and look at these sites. They're all off limits. Only archaeologists can go, but then only the ones that believe the narrative. If you go and you discover something and say, oh, you guys are all wrong, you'll lose your job and you'll never work again. You know, so it's gatekeeping. All these people with letters behind their names. And of course, it's become so blatantly obvious in the last year or so, they're all gatekeepers for information. You know, the medical establishment are gatekeepers against frequency healing and herbalism and things like that. And religion is gatekeeper against free energy, it looks like.
Spiritual energy too, right?
Spiritual, yeah, right. Electricity, God.
Interesting.
That's just an old tower for some
Zoom
reason.
in on that
back in-
one. Zoom in on that one, will you?
Yeah, and it's that you'll see a lot of these Eiffel Tower like buildings in the oldest of pictures, and they're everywhere, and they claim that, oh, the Eiffel Tower was just one, and then that there's like these intricate crazy blueprints of other ones that like they must have been built, and there's like ones that look like they're pictures of them and they claim that they're not actual pictures, but it's like, no, that was part of what the old world technology and the old electrical harvesting of atmospheric electricity, and it ties identically down to the same way of Nikola Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower. And
Yep.
Rex, I'll get you these pictures of the French and German science of harvesting electrical energy out of the atmosphere, and it's like they fully understood it, and we just are only beginning to get it. So it was wiped out. That understanding must have been wiped out sometime between the 15 and 1600s when those books were written, and then Nikola Tesla again at the turn of the century with his Wardenclyffe Tower.
So there you go. So that's the last pick there. I've got a couple more if you want to look at them, or how are we going?
Man,
why
this is
not?
fascinating. Actually,
Absolutely.
I must say this is above and beyond my expectations. This is super cool. And I'm just going to take it with an open mind, yet still be questioning everything. And some of these photos do look like do have that resemblance of a possible technological device. But I could also say just as much that it was just how do I put it? It was a copy of a copy of a copy.
Representation. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And that's a good point too, that it's like maybe there wasn't functioning copies or functioning understanding of it since the last reset, but it's definitely evidence that at some point in the past, there was a higher global civilization and technology, right? So who knows how much was passed on, how much was used actively.
And I also want to say that absolutely. And I also want to say that this also makes much sense when you ask the question of why is the majority of music in 440 hertz versus 432? And the cathedrals and these religious and spiritual locations are often tuned to 432 hertz. And if everything is frequency at a specific level, if you can manipulate that frequency, then you can manipulate the root of the situation. So to take it from 432 versus 440, from harmony to disharmony, and clearly tell the difference, you just put a guitar next to your chest and pull the strings at 432 versus 440, and it is an absolute physical difference. So it used to be the musicians, you remember back in the day, well, this is probably a little bit before your time, getting a CD, you go out and buy a CD, like, oh man, this is my band, I got a CD now, and you have the Walkman and all that kind of stuff. And they had so much influence on our minds because we didn't have the internet to get into. We didn't have 1,000 channels and all this information. And now it's not, I mean, there's a few musicians out there that are extremely successful and have that global influence, but not like it used to be. And so you've got 5 corporations that control almost all the media. And by doing so, they control the narrative in the minds of the people. And once again, if you are embedded on the television set, it's going to have a hypnotic effect, and you're going to miss out on a lot of brilliant questions you're not going to ask the right questions because you're going to be stuck in that trap. So I guess in finishing this, question everything, folks. Question everything and ask yourselves this question. If there's 5 or 6 corporations that control almost everything, and there's just a few corporations behind those corporations that are funding, like these giant banking institutions, why would they push something on the news that they wouldn't want you to see? If they don't want you to see it, why is it going to be on the news? They control it.
Exactly.
So even when, oh, dude, did you, man, they're really messing up out there in Afghanistan. They want you to know that. Then they can throw you back and forth. It's like they have both sides. So they're pissing off anybody that watches the news, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or either, you're going to get pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
It's just,
Exactly.
It makes no sense, but you just keep watching it and you keep thinking, oh, I'm going to get the news. I'm going to get information that's valuable and important. And most of the conspiracy channels out there, they get information from these 5 corporations that get most of their information from one source.
Yeah.
Yep.
Think about that.
So one thing to add into what you're saying there, like Marilyn Manson, for instance, stopped making CDs and music, but what has he been doing? Oh, he's been making the soundtracks for movies. Why? Because he's paid way more and he's way more influential in creating, because he's an intense sound engineer, of making those sounds that do the subliminal messaging, that do the emotional fear state. And that's actual documented proof and evidence. And like, he takes credit for it. Like, there's a video out there of him bragging about it, but it's like they're doing this evil influencing on it. And like my girlfriend Amber, who said hello to both of you lovely people, by the way, but I will not sleep next to her after she watches a horror movie, because that night I'm getting beat up. She's shrieking, she's screaming, she's kicking, she's punching, she's scratching. She's living a trauma that movie has instilled on her. And they're doing it through these frequencies that are it's a higher dimensional science. It goes into the metaphysics. It goes into like whatever societies used to understand it. Some maybe still do in the most esoteric secret societies and whatnot and teachings around the world, but it's being it got classified as a military technology in the 50s, and it's been being used against us ever since.
Yeah, well, we've got those photos from back in World War One, and it's of these, they're weapons, but they look like big tubers. They look like big tubers, and so they pump out sound, and it's a weapon, and there's heaps of them, and they were using it in World War One. So there's so much out there that we just get so much taken away and hidden from us, and then whatever's left, we just get a watered down version so that we can't understand it properly, so that we don't ask questions. They don't want us obviously asking questions. That's what this is all about, and it's about, this all goes obviously further as far as, low energy is, obviously loose energy, and that's what they feed on, and they want to keep people down there. It's controllable, but also with all the confusion, they want to, fracture people's mental state, keep them confused so they can get in. When you're focused and you know who you are, you're standing, guard at the gates of your mind. When you're like, oh, what the hell's going on? They can just jump in. And like you said, Rex, they do that through the telly, right?
Yeah,
all the ads and all the news.
Lower state of lower vibrational state, right? When you're down in that fear or in that anger, you're emotionally impulsive, but you're not consciously thinking. When you're on that higher vibration, that higher conscious dimension, you're connecting up to your spiritual self, to the Akashic record, to like throughout the Christ consciousness, it's called as well. That's being on the higher vibration, and that's through love, light, happiness. And then when you're in that fear, in that sadness, that sorrow, you're on a low vibrational wave. And there's actual science that shows the different wavelengths of emotion, and that the higher vibrational thought waves are interacting with more spots on your DNA, and the lower emotional only hit it a couple of times. So that if you're in fear, if you're in anger, if you're in sorrow and sadness, you're not going to be yourself. You're giving away your free will essentially, and you're easily herd mentality moved and manipulated.
Basically.
And on that note, folks, be excellent.